Hey, Washington Commanders fans. I need to have a serious talk with you about what happened on Sunday night. And I assure you that you'll want to hear every word because I'm going to reveal exactly who the culprits are for this devastating loss that we're all feeling right now. We lost in an absolutely painful overtime to the Broncos by 27-26, but what many aren't talking about are the questionable decisions that led us to this outcome. The first part will show you three major issues that no one wants to admit, but that cost us dearly. And the second will analyze that controversial final play of the two-point conversion in detail and whether it really was the right decision. Subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell because you can't miss these in-depth analyses, and leave a like if you're as frustrated as I am with this loss. Let's start by talking about the main culprits for this crushing overtime defeat, and the first one is going to surprise you. There were special moments for the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football, including a historic achievement by Terry McLaurin, but in the end, what matters is that we lost, once again. The most important and painful part is that the Broncos clinched the victory thanks to an absolutely spectacular defensive play by Nick Bonito, who intercepted a pass from Marcus Mariota that could have given us victory in a two-point conversion attempt. The moment was perfect for the Broncos, according to ESPN. Denver's coach Sean Payton explained that they call this a Kodak situation. When you have a timeout and the game is about to end, you call the timeout, completely regroup, and organize your thoughts calmly. The challenge is that these plays are usually designed runs for the quarterback, which worried them a lot initially. So they switched from one pressure to a different strategy. But there will always be a free player to pressure if you pressure the way they did, and you don't know exactly who that free player is going to be because the protection changes. They strategically left Nick free, and the timing of everything was absolutely perfect for them and devastating for us. The first major culprit of the loss is that our running strategy simply wasn't effective enough throughout the game. Some might say that Washington ran for 143 yards and think that's very good on the surface. However, the Commanders only managed to get 58 yards on 4 significant and explosive runs. This means that the remaining 29 attempts yielded only 95 miserable yards, with an average of just 3.3 yards per rush, which is terrible. The Commanders often found themselves in unfavorable first down and long yardage situations due to short gains that didn't help at all. In most games, this would have resulted in completely frustrated offensive drives with no points. This is especially true with Mariota as quarterback, who doesn't have the same playmaking ability as Daniels. However, the Commanders managed to convert 8 of 17 third downs against a Broncos defense that had been allowing a success rate of only 29%. Still, the Commanders have absolutely nothing special in the backfield at this time. All that huge preseason and early season talk about Jack Krosky merit has completely dissipated. He can't even get on the field now, falling behind NFL veterans like Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Jeremy McNichols. This makes us fans lose faith in people like Coach Dan Quinn and General Manager Adam Peters for creating absurd expectations around a player who has proven to be a total failure. The second major culprit is Dan Quinn himself, who took too long to take charge of the defense personally. If all the Commanders needed for a minimally competitive defense was for Quinn to assume the role of defensive coordinator, why the hell did he wait until the season completely crumbled to do it? This clearly indicates that Quinn is either too detached from reality or not a strong enough leader to take responsibility when necessary. His excessive loyalty to defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. has been absolutely detrimental to the entire organization. Despite the season falling apart, the Commanders have shown a surprisingly admirable defense for 2 consecutive weeks under Quinn's direct leadership. This was evident according to The Athletic. The improvement of the Commanders' defense since Quinn took over play calling has been impressive considering where we came from. The same roster that couldn't stop anything a few weeks ago performed very well in the overtime loss against the Miami Dolphins and made key plays against the Denver as well. It's true that the Commanders faced 2 not-so-great offenses, but considering the humiliating losses they had been suffering, this is a remarkable turnaround for Washington. According to a post by Zach Selby on X, Quinn stated that his team showed a lot of character in the loss, saying he hates the result but loved the fight. He knows they can improve and obviously have a lot of room to continue evolving. Honestly, everything indicates that Quinn's best role remains that of defensive coordinator. He had an outstanding performance with the Falcons before the collapse in Super Bowl 2016 and repeated it last year with the Commanders in the campaign that took them to the NFC final. It's evident that the man knows how to coach a defense, but his leadership as a head coach needs to be seriously questioned. Perhaps he is too friendly with the players and cannot make tough decisions when necessary. The third major culprit is the disastrous roster construction that will take years to be completely undone. Furthermore, Quinn is part of a disastrous roster build that will take years to be undone and corrected. The Commanders went all in on veterans in 2025, believing they could compete immediately. And nearly all those guys will be completely useless in 2026 when their contracts expire or when they lose even more capacity. But you only have a limited number of draft picks to replace them, and free agents of any real value tend to be older as well. The Commanders' disaster may not have a real solution until 2027 at best. Honestly, looking ahead, the Commanders have 2 games that they might possibly win before likely finishing the year with 3 horrific consecutive losses. If that happens, they will finish with a depressing record of 5 wins and 12 losses and be in a not-so-promising position in the 2026 NFL Draft. But there's also a realistic possibility of the Commanders finishing the season with a record of 3 wins and 14 losses. This would likely be bad enough for a pick among the top 3 in the draft, which at least would be something positive. And since they already have the quarterback they want in Jaden Daniels, perhaps they can find a dynamic player capable of acting both as a running back and as a wide receiver to help Daniels succeed in 2026. It would be like having a multi-tool weapon that could completely transform the offense and give Daniels the tools he desperately needs to succeed. But all of this is just speculation at this moment because we still have games to play and see what happens. Now let's move on to the second part that analyzes in detail that controversial final play that decided the game. The Washington Commanders were literally 1 play away from achieving their first significant victory of the season, but watched the opportunity slip painfully through their fingers. Nobody, absolutely nobody, gave the Commanders a real chance before the game, but they played toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the AFC and one of the best defenses in the entire league. Despite the extremely controversial officiating calls at the end of the game that hurt Washington, the Commanders fought bravely and took the game against the Denver Broncos to overtime. The offense needed to respond quickly after the Broncos scored first in overtime, and after a few absolutely breathtaking plays, Terry McLaurin scored the signature touchdown for which he is nationally known. McLaurin received a short pass with Patrick Surtain second in direct coverage, putting the Commanders in position to win the game, but only if they converted the 2-point conversion. Cliff Kingsbury would probably like to revisit the decision on that specific 2-point conversion play now. They say great players make great plays in big moments, and that's exactly what happened with the Commanders in overtime against the Broncos on Sunday Night Football. At least we tried. Cliff Kingsbury had what seemed to be the perfect play designed. Washington lined up in a 3-by-1 formation with running back Jeremy McNichols, lined up to the right of quarterback Marcus Mariota. At the snap, Washington released all 3 wide receivers to the offensive side, with aggressive routes intercepting Denver's defense, while McNichols crossed the entire formation and ran to the completely open left sideline. Washington was in man coverage, which was favorable, and the defender responsible for covering McNichols was safety Talanoa Hufanga, who had to deal with McNichols across the formation but had a crowd of Commanders receivers and Broncos defenders blocking his path. Wide receiver Treylon Burks managed to perfectly hit Hufanga and completely divert him from the route, leaving the path clear. McNichols was completely free on the sideline and could have easily entered the end zone if he had received the ball cleanly. But Broncos pass rusher Nick Bonito, who received a great contract from the team this summer, jumped high into the night air to deflect Mariota's pass, as the Commanders' quarterback stepped away from the uncovered defender approaching him. Washington made a total breakdown in protection, which allowed Bonito to close the angle perfectly and spectacularly intercept the pass. If the Commanders could go back in time, one wonders if it might have been preferable to have left tackle Laramie Tunsil specifically mark Bonito and risk the B-gap to an uncovered defender, where Mariota would still be throwing quickly to the left sideline. Any pressure coming in his direction wouldn't have been directly in Mariota's path to throw to the left sideline like Bonito was, but that is a question that Kingsbury and his unit will have to deeply explore this week, holding a record of 3 wins and 9 losses. The decision to attempt the 2-point conversion was definitely the right choice for head coach Dan Quinn and the Commanders team, which was standing at a record of 3 wins and 8 losses at that moment. They had absolutely nothing to lose, and tying would be as bad as losing to that team at this point in the season. This was undoubtedly the right decision after they played the best 4 quarters of the entire season and wanted to be aggressive in seeking the deserved victory. Quinn revisited the decision after the game to attempt the final blow and did not regret it at all. He said that arriving at overtime, he thought this would be their strategy and kind of viewed it as a third possession in a way. Honestly, it was a play they really liked and had practiced extensively. We were taken down, but against the man coverage, it was a play we had trained a lot and genuinely liked. So he hates the final result, but there was no hesitation in the decision. He knew before the campaign began that if they scored, they would attempt the 2-point conversion. Then you are in a position of 4 downs, so it's more strategic in that complete sense. Kingsbury had the play perfectly planned and drawn up, but Bonito simply would not accept it and made the play of his life. It's the perfect example that absolutely nothing is guaranteed in the NFL, even if your process is completely correct and well executed. Sometimes the other side simply makes a better play, and you have to accept that. It was devastating to see that opportunity slip away, but at the same time, you have to give credit to Bonito for making a phenomenal play. The question now is whether this experience will make us stronger, or if it will just be another painful loss in a season full of them. What I can say is that we finally saw the team fight with heart and nearly achieve an important victory against a quality opponent. That has to mean something for the development of the young players and for the culture we are trying to build here. But at the same time, we can't settle for near victories because at the end of the day, what matters is the final result, and we lost. So the final question I leave for you to reflect deeply on and answer in the comments is, considering everything we've discussed about the three main culprits for the loss, including the ineffective rushing strategy, Dan Quinn taking too long to take over the defense, and the disastrous roster construction, and also considering that the decision to attempt the two-point conversion was technically correct but did not work, do you believe we are truly on the right path and that these painful losses will eventually make us stronger and more competitive? Or are we just fooling ourselves? And the reality is that we need a much deeper and longer overhaul than we imagined before we can compete for the playoffs again.